Question: what are you a fan of? Is it a movie, a book, a TV show, a music group, a sports team, or maybe something less conventional? I'm Regan.
And I'm Christian. We've spent over 10 years working in the customer service and entertainment industries. It's this experience which leads us to believe that everyone has a compelling, personal connection to the things that they are a fan of.
And we're here to uncover the secret fandoms of the Gulf Coast's VIPs. Join us as we talk with passionate fans about what they love. On this episode of Fantastic People,
and really sort of a defining moment in my life. And then one of the reasons why I went into corporate America was because I was going through this real analysis class, which is like a advanced math class in college that you take if you want to go be a PhD economist. I thought I was going to go to economics grad school. I thought that was my point of doing things. And then I took this class and I didn't have any time to go to football or watch any football games. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I enjoy this part of my life. It's not my life. Like, I don't live for it like some people might, but I really enjoy it. And I can't do this thing that I enjoy because I'm stuck here doing all of these really difficult math proofs.
we talk with Travis Hornsby. Travis is the founder, owner, and chief student loan planner of his company, Student Loan Planner. At the age of 25, Travis retired as a corporate bond trader. And at 26, after helping his wife and her friends figure out their six-figure student loans, started the Student Loan Planner. Instrumental in his life journey is his love and dedication to the University of Florida Gators football. This episode of Fantastic People is sponsored by Hellcat Hangar in Pensacola, Florida. Hellcat Hangar's venture is to build a thriving network of individuals and opportunities centered around the production arts and media. They strive to provide exceptional service as a production studio, valuable insight and education, and to enrich the overall industry across the Gulf Coast. They open their doors as a business, a venue, and as a community event center, but in all manners, their doors are open to cultivate a culture of togetherness. To join the Hellcat Hangar community or reserve a time for your event, you can find them online at hellcathangar.com or call 850-341-7403.
So Travis, thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to just point out to begin with, like so many of our guests, you also were in the Pensacola Children's Chorus.
Yeah, maybe not as successfully as Regan, but
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, you had all the solos, man.
that was always the sore spot with my brother Dennis. Like he didn't get as many solos, and so man, that was terrible. We were terrible brothers to him. We're like, Dennis, where are your solos, bro? You got to stay on tune more. And he's like, I'm gonna beat you up.
Yeah, same thing here. I wasn't as much of a favorite child as my brother, but that's okay. Well, we're not here to talk about that.
I want to talk about it for a second. Is there is there a sense of a rivalry there within the children's chorus, or is it just within family groups that you find there?
I mean, both, I would say. I don't know. What do you think, Regan?
I would say, first of all, we can't talk about current children's chorus because we know nothing about current. And
yeah, y'all are old now. You're not in the children's chorus.
Back then, I would say there was moments where it was like, oh, I feel like this is for me. I'm going to get this. And then it was somebody else. And it was usually the same person. We mentioned before we started recording, we were talking about Miguel, who's been on this podcast before. That dude probably got 90% of the solos that were available to male parts. And so, yeah, I would say that if there's anybody to be jealous over, it's going to be that guy. He took them all.
But I will say, to be fair, I think 90% was unfair. He should have got 100. I mean,
hey, good point.
Compared to me, So I mean, in terms of do you give LeBron the ball? Yes or no? I mean, So, so some of the best memories of my life, though, I'll say that.
Yep, agreed.
That's a great analogy. I love that the frame of reference. Nowadays, if I have this correct, you are a student loan consultant.
Yeah. So I went into corporate America, didn't like it, and then I started a company. Didn't plan on this growing, but it did. And so we're now the biggest student loan advice company in the country. So we've advised like about $1.6 billion now.
What is a day in the life look like for that?
Well, what it really looks like is I come in, work really hard on some things, find that I've got a 30-minute break, go in and play some open source video games to decompress, work on a bunch of other really intense things, but then just go walk for like an hour. And then, oh, look, it's 5. I got to go pick up my baby from the grandparents. And that would be like a typical day. Like I probably do plans now, maybe only one day a week, because we've got a team that does plans, and I try to run the business most of the time. And I will say that I'm significantly more domesticated than I thought I was ever going to be. I traveled the world, went to like 40 countries, was thinking I was going to be early retired. That's the other thing that I guess people...
You retired at 25, right? Or 20?
Yeah. 20. Yeah. So I was kind of nuts. I thought that I could live off 20,000 a year, spend nothing basically. And for a while I was succeeding, but then true love intervened. And it turns out a lot of spouses are not down for like 20K a year living. What? I don't know. It's just like this, kind of surprising thing to me. Then she's like, hey, I'm in medicine. I got to be like, not, 7 to 5 kind of thing. Like I got to be somewhere. I can't just be, chilling in Eastern Europe. Like my medical license isn't down for that. So you've got to move if you're committed. I was like, oh shoot, you got to make a decision. I hate making decisions. So I made the decision to go to St. Louis, where she got a job, and we got married and have a baby, and good decision. But the business kind of became a big thing, because I think this is okay to say, but like her parents were just like, we're not going to come to the wedding unless you like man up and get a job. And I was like, oh, wow. So I don't really need to have a job right now, but I was doing this thing as a side project. And I was like, well, I might as well do this instead of going back to work into something I don't like. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And it's kind of like the best thing is like where the world's hunger and your passions meet. Like that's the best job to get.
Yeah.
And it can be a job for somebody else. It can be a job that you make. And for me, I didn't have an easy path to joining a job that I liked. So I made my own. And was successful in doing that because I tried to fix a pain that somebody had, a very niche specific pain. So that's where I see a lot of entrepreneurs fail, is they like try to solve a broad thing, or they're not very specific who their customer is. And so they just beat around the bush. Whereas like, if you're very specific, you only do this kind of thing, you're only doing it for this kind of a person, you're going to have, I think, a lot of success in making your own path.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's some good tips and a very interesting life story up to this point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I am proud to say I paid off my student loans this year, so I feel pretty good about where I'm at.
I am proud to say that I never had any, but
man, I went to a private school.
You know what I also don't have though?
Degree.
Right.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, I got lied to, man. It was like, oh, okay, come here on a full ride. Oh, by the way, a full ride doesn't really cover everything that you go to school for. So you're still going to need loans. And,
it's kind of like a partial ride, like a side of the horse kind of a ride,
I ended up learning that it was the full amount that they offered in scholarship was not the full amount that covered tuition is where they got me. Oh my gosh.
That's brutal. But no deceptive advertising penalties, right? I mean, that's what's amazing to me is all these universities, for profit and not for profit, they're able to like advertise to the moon about like how much money you're going to make and how successful you're going to be. And then it doesn't happen. And there's no false advertising penalties for them. It's just like, oh, well, you got a degree.
Speaking of colleges.
Yeah. There you go. Nice transition there, Regan.
You're welcome.
We're here to discuss college, or at least an offshoot of university, or the university experience, which is the Florida Gators. And I might be wrong here, but we're saying the Florida Gators specific football team, correct?
I would say so. Like you think about things that you reference your life to, and a whole lot of the exciting moments like had some sort of connection to that. And so I think that's why I went with them as sort of my what am I a fan of? Because it's like the most consistent sort of life sort of influencing thing. And I don't mean like I chose my job because I like the Florida Gators or something. It's just like for various reasons, it impacted me in different phases of my life.
That's awesome. Can you maybe explain a little bit how you got into following the football team and following the Gators specifically?
So you join a 50,000 person university and you don't have community, and you go in the fall, and you don't know what clubs to join, where to go, like what to do, but you know that there's like 100,000 people that get together one place to cheer for a team one day a week on Saturdays, right? And so when I went, I didn't know that was a thing. You just go to football games like that's what everybody does. I didn't know that. And then, we started being good because we had Tim Tebow and we were just winning like crazy. That was the year we won the national championship. So it was electric being a part of something, being in community with people that in many cases you had nothing in common with. So that's what I really loved about it, was it's like this moment where you're just like raging tribal, we're going to war, but it's not for like the typical, like, things that split a lot of people apart. Football splits people apart pretty hardcore on Saturdays, but then on, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, like, I don't know, at least most people can laugh about it. Maybe not, Alabama fans. I'm just kidding, but, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great description. I did not go to a school with a football program, and I watch college football, and I would say I am a fan of a couple of teams, but it's never been like a huge thing for me. Because of that, I'm certainly more of a like professional guy because I grew up in a town with a pro team. And again, you experience this thing. Everyone's really energetic. But Regan, you probably feel similar, maybe. I think not having that has just made me kind of be like, I don't know. It's hard for me to relate to it other than I've been to a college game and I feel the excitement, but I don't feel the connection.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I think that, I've always been for a while, I was always a fan of college football, Florida State, so it's a weird topic we're talking about here, but I didn't go to that school. Right. And so as I went through college and I kind of graduated college, as I got to the age where I wasn't in college anymore, I no longer felt like I could relate to Florida State fans and Florida State people who actually went to that school. Right. And so then I sort of kind of fell out of that community of football fans because I didn't actually relate. Right. I didn't have those shared experiences that you mentioned, Travis, of sitting in it. I mean, I've been to a Florida State game, which is great and exhilarating, but not as a student, which is just a whole different level of connection and community. But I will say, like, for the time when I was very, very deep into it, there was probably a couple of seasons where I was like that. One of which was when Florida State won the national championship. And you're right. There is something. I worked with some people at a restaurant where we all were fans and we were watching every game. And so we're working, we're serving, we're in the kitchen, we're in the front, we're all like interacting and talking about it. Like there was a sense of community with employees that I would have not connected with otherwise. So I got a taste of that, but nowhere near the level of having actually attended the school.
Well, it was sort of like a melting pot of society in the sense that you could look at University of Florida and say, well, this is typically people that come from like middle-class families, like an upper middle-class families that maybe didn't have enough money to send their kids to University of Miami or NYU or something like that. Maybe that's like a gross overstatement, but like at least a lot of the people that went to University of Florida went there because it was cheap. So they're, but then within the football stadium, you had like different groups that often I think got assigned seats based off of like connections and power and like political influence and things like that, where you would get your ticket block like a better section if you're a member of like one fraternity versus another. They claim it's randomized, but it always seemed like it wasn't. So that's interesting. But then you have like that weirdness with like, having wonderful family memories together. Like I remember I slept out in front of the stadium to get tickets for my whole family for Tebow's last game against Florida State.
Wow.
And we got like near front row tickets. So I guess maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is random, the allotment of tickets, but we got those. And like the stadium lights up like a Christmas tree in his last few snaps as people were taking pictures, kind of like a Roger Clemens kind of thing. What's the Yankees reliever that was really famous, right? So, I mean, so just really cool memories and really sort of a defining moment in my life. And then like one of the reasons why I went into corporate America was because I was going through this real analysis class, which is like a advanced math class in college that you take if you want to go be a PhD economist. I thought I was going to go to economics grad school. I thought that was my point of doing things. And then I took this class and I didn't have any time to go to football or watch any football games. And I was like, what am I doing like I enjoy this part of my life. It's not my life. Like I don't live for it like some people might, but I really enjoy it. And I can't do this thing that I enjoy because I'm stuck here doing all of these really difficult math proofs. And then I realized, wait a second, do I really enjoy this? Or am I telling myself that I enjoy this like class to go to grad school and do this thing? And then I realized, well, wait a second. It's not that I enjoy it. It's that I feel like I have to do it. And that's preventing me from doing something that I do want to do. So I pivoted away from that and then became, a student loan consultant and which only happened because I built up Excel skills in the private sector doing corporate path first. So like, it's weird. That's why I say like, that's why I thought I would talk about it today. It's just because it's like, it randomly touches like parts of your life in different ways. And this community is something that I've been thinking about constantly with the pandemic, just how starved we all feel for community in many ways, especially people that are extroverts. Checking your extroverts out there. They're not doing well, right? 2 years into the pandemic, we're suffering pretty badly for lack of human connection. So that's something that I'm really excited to do. Just some people are doing it already. I think I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer with my wife being in medicine and stuff, just supporting her. But, maybe 2023 or 2022 fall, I want to be like front and center, just screaming my brains out. Nobody wearing masks, hopefully no cases at all, just having a great time and feeling like we're in community again.
Yeah, that's really great. And it's so interesting. You talk about having kind of this passion or fandom, which maybe was never a focal point for you, but helped kind of create a lens for you to make decisions and recognize what you want and for yourself and for your future. I think that's really touching. To your point about doing it, I have gone to live sports since the start of the pandemic. And honestly, I was so starved for it and I didn't even realize it, because while the pandemic was at the height of 2020 and we brought sports back, I really thought it was kind of an interesting look at what sports look like without fans in it. I enjoyed kind of deciphering that, how it affects the players, what happened. And then fast forward to June of 2021 and the Hawks make the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Hawks, besides 2015, my entire life have been terrible. And I was like, well, I got to take this opportunity. I'm going to an Eastern Conference Finals game. And it was so refreshing to be in this like stadium with 40,000 other people, just, all passionate about this one thing. And I had completely forgot what it felt like. It was like doing it for the first time all over again. I'm excited for you when you do decide to go when you can.
Well, yeah, it's mostly probably not that I'm philosophically opposed to going right now. It's more that I have a 1-year-old daughter and it's just very difficult to get away. I mean, like it used to be a lot easier to just be like, oh, I'm going to go down. And I was like, I've got a family and I can't just, pop down on a flight whenever I want. So it's kind of like it's thing you got to plan way ahead of time. And well, oops, I guess it was a good year not to plan it, because I think we're like 4-3 now or something like that. The thing with college sports, I mean, remember how kind of back last fall, they were going to cancel all of it, right? Like none of it was going to happen. And that was so hard on me mentally. And it sounds stupid, but it was like, you're taking away like a part of life that you took for granted. And yes, you're doing it to save lives during a pandemic and everything, but you're doing that with no strong evidence that it's going to save X amount of lives directly, right? So could it save lives? Sure. Could it not be that impactful? Sure. And could it, have negative effects on a lot of these guys' lives that are trying to make it to the NFL? Like, yeah, I mean, maybe now that there's name, image, likeness, which I think is a great thing that people can make money off of their name, you're depriving people of earnings and making a living in a narrow window that they could as well. Right. So I think that's what's so interesting is like with college sports, like you don't realize how much it helps you mentally just to have it on in the background, just like while you're talking to your buddy, like, you remember where you were when, a particular game ended with a blocked field goal and like we lost or we won. And it's just kind of like makes you help remember parts of your life that you don't want to forget. So that's why I think it's so special to me.
You bring up a great point, and I think that's something I hadn't considered during the pandemic with the way sports were impacted. Because, while it maybe not even everybody's a fan of sports or a certain sport, it's still a part of our culture, and it's still something that exists and is on regularly during the season. You go anywhere, you see it. and people are generally aware of events that are happening with different specific games. And you're right. There are memories of, oh, I remember when, Alabama lost to Auburn because of the field goal. And I remember when, all of these stories, and you take them for granted. You don't think much about them on a daily basis. But when you go a whole year without that, or you go 6 months without that, you realize you're missing something during that year that is so normal and so second place, secondary, second nature, whatever.
Words.
Yeah, words.
So you mentioned briefly that when you were at Florida, that was kind of probably the height of Tebow mania. What can you describe maybe what the atmosphere was like on campus? And, I mean, in my opinion, Tebow might be top 3 college football player of all time. So what was that experience like going to school there?
You felt like he was invincible. Like you put way too much on him. So that's the other problem with college football is you kind of almost like idolize people. Like it's not a healthy thing from that perspective to like, these guys are normal guys. Like they're normal people. They just happen to have special skills that people enjoy watching, entertaining, So that's one thing is, people were kind of obsessed with like, is Tebow real? Like, is he really actually like this good Christian boy, or is he really partying secretly? And like, all these things, it's like gossip, right? Like it's like things humans do. And instead of just talking about your circle, you can talk about one person that 100,000 people know, right? Or a million people know. But so in terms of the atmosphere, though, it was electric. I mean, I have a little bit mixed feelings now because obviously Aaron Hernandez was a part of that team. And, there was stuff going on with like, I think Urban Meyer's program that was like not the best, but like at that time, it was amazing. You felt like a 3rd and 3, he was going to get it every single time, no matter what. Like I went to Florida, Georgia, like we just destroyed Georgia, and like the fans were so depressed, and all the Gator fans were like the only people packing the bars, having a big blast, like Halloween weekend, I mean, it was really amazing. It was electric. Like we won the national championship, tens of thousands of people, probably 50% of the population of the town came out and partied on the street when we won, like all night. And people were diving off of roofs into crowds and like doing really unsafe things, but things that are seared into your memory, unfortunately, some things that you can't unsee. Right? But there's nothing really else like it, maybe, except, like the Eagles winning the Super Bowl for the first time in 50 years or something like that. I mean, that's kind of the way it felt.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could be wrong. I think I'm right about the statistic, but the year that Tebow won the national championship, I think Florida won like 7 different sports national championships that year, because they also won basketball, gymnastics, softball, and like a couple of other like smaller ones. Like that was a real dominant time in Florida's athletic program.
Well, this is going to sound weird, but like, I was walking around like I had swagger because I went to the University of Florida, and like I was a skinny white kid that had absolutely nothing to do with athletics at all. Like that would fall flat in his face at the first form of contact, So, I mean, but it's like that formative moment of your youth where you're like figuring out who you are as a person, as an adult. And then you see all this success around you and it makes you feel really happy and excited and like you're a part of something cool. And there is a reason why, if you look, when football teams are doing well, applications to particular universities soar. And when the football team is in the dumps and not doing that well, applications drop. And that's part of the reason. It's kind of interesting. It's like a side sort of benefit of higher education is that atmosphere and that entertainment. And it's absolutely a huge, fun social benefit that people pay for, I think, when you go to college, is to get to experience that.
I am curious, maybe shifting gears a little bit. When you were like, you talked about traveling abroad and stuff, how closely did you kind of keep up during that time? Because I feel like that could be a combination from, it might be a little hard to check the Florida State game score.
Yeah, I mean, in Eastern Europe, you can pretty much pirate anything, right? I'm not saying that I did that, but just throwing it out there. It's not super easy to. I think that ESPN and things like that, you can always see the highlights, right? So that's probably like the main thing that I've used to follow up. But the cool thing with the University of Florida, it's big enough that there's alumni groups at different parts of the world that can get it. Like I think there was like a Paris group or like a London group that somehow was able to get the signal for the game. And, because it's London and there's like 10 million people in London, right? There's like 200 people that went to University of Florida, and 20 of them want to meet up and watch football games together. So that's another kind of crazy thing about going to a big school that was fun for me, is you feel like you have community almost any big city in the world just by showing up to the alumni event.
Wow, that's a great point.
The time I was going through that really difficult, am I going to become an economics professor or not? Like the team kind of helped me through all those terrible days worth of proofs I was doing. And I would put it in the background and just be thinking, wow, like life is not what you think you have to make out of it. It's where you best suited, where can you have the biggest impact? Like where can you make the biggest calling? Cause it's like, society will tell you to do stuff because it's like, oh, it pays well. Well, that's, or it's prestigious. Well, that's not a good reason to do something.
Mm-hmm.
It's never a good reason to do something, and having just pure fun is also not a reason to just do something, but it's good to have a balance. So I think that's what memories that it taught me.
Yeah. Can you paint that picture in terms of that moment and where you were, what it felt like?
Well, like 3 people out of 30 passed the class that I was in. I mean, it was a guy that like really hated teaching undergrads, in my opinion, and was trying to actively create something with Theo Buntsman to get out of teaching undergrads in the future. I don't know. That's maybe just kind of a, complainy pants, but I'd never gotten an F in my life. And I was definitely on pace to get an F in this class. Like it was just really, really hard. And so I was just, I think, sitting, watching a game, like knowing all the work that I had to do, knew that I could withdraw from a class if I had to. And I was just like, you know what? This isn't worth it. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger and I'm going to withdraw. And, I was somebody that felt like, I was probably pretty arrogant, probably am, I don't know. But I was thinking, I'm going to apply for a Rhodes Scholarship and I'm going to apply for Harvard, PhD econ program, right? I'm going to go out and apply for all these top-notch things. And having a failure like this on my resume is going to ensure that among the other very competent, smart people I'm competing against for this spots of things, I'm not going to get that spot. So it felt like a failure and a release of obligation at the same time.
That's all, a great perspective. Regan and I both talk about kind of a lack of that communal experience for us. Can you think of maybe some other reasons why there might be a disconnect for college football? And I know in the South, it's the general audience are college football fans, but that's not true everywhere. So can maybe you talk a little bit about where that disconnect can be found?
Well, so say again. So you mean like where people could find community like that in other things, or why it's so special to people in the South, or what exactly?
Like why I think there's large, for example, I'm from Atlanta, right?
Right.
And college football is not a thing there.
Georgia Tech is, yeah,
they're terrible. So are we saying it's just the record of the team that causes, or is there just something about college football that maybe is different than other professional from professional sports that creates maybe a disconnect from this larger appeal? Or is it that just going to the school there really helps you become a fan of that thing?
Well, I think the thing about sports is when you're good, it's a lot more fun than when you're not. And then also at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all. Like, and I'll say that as a big fan of something like the Gators, like the eternal consequences of the Florida Gators doing well or poorly are absolutely zero, right? God does not care what the record of the Florida Gators is, right? So I say that because it's the kind of thing where you can get passionate, you can get ridiculous, you can, say a bunch of insulting things about the other team or something, and people know you're doing it within the context of sports. And so you can have so much fun, release all this aggression that you've got in your life, forget about all the troubles that you've got, and then move on and keep living your life. Right. So I guess like to the extent that there's things like that people could latch onto, that's how they could get something similar. So like a Cleveland Browns fan, they've been bad for so long, but you've got to believe that somebody who's a diehard Cleveland Browns fan that watched their team like actually have a winning season for once in like 30 years is like feeling so great about that and is so happy and so moved and feels so much emotional, happiness from that. So I don't know, like if something's a negative in your life and like actually like there's an epidemic of sports betting among men. So that would be something that I would say is like sports can be a huge negative in your life. If you're addicted to gambling, if you are a fan of the Browns and it's negatively impacting your emotions because they're so bad for so long, right? Like there's certain situations where you should abandon a team, abandon a sport, abandon watching something. But I think that's why it's fun, is because like if you think about other things like politics, religion, marriage, like those fights are things that like they don't go away. Like those are things that are a lot more impactful, have a lot more impactful, force in people's lives. And I think that's what we like about sports is we can watch it and it doesn't matter. And, if you win the championship, it matters. It matters a lot. But when people say, oh, this is the only thing that matters. No, it's not. It's entertainment. That's why we all watch it. Like it's an entertainment product. And it wouldn't be fun if you weren't saying it's the only thing that matters. And I die for the, for the team to win. Right.
Right.
Yeah. As a fan of the Falcons, it's something I probably should quit, honestly.
Yeah. I
have a negative relationship with it for sure.
Have an on and off switch, when they're bad, you can just be like, well, at least I'm not as bad as the Falcons, right? Or at least, at least my marriage isn't as bad as the contract they signed with Matt Ryan, right? I mean, you gotta find joy in every moment, so no matter how bad your team is, right? Like you're 0-16 Jacksonville for the past 20 years. Well, at least we're going to get, another couple seasons of football before they move it to London, right? I mean, so you just got to look for the, when you're bad, make it a joke. When you're good, like feel invincible, feel fun. I think that being a sports fan is something I highly recommend.
No, I enjoy it for sure. Regan, you don't really consume much sports at all anymore, do you?
I don't. And that was going back to your point, Travis, about when it becomes unhealthy, right? I was a long time Florida State fan and watched so much football when it came to Florida State games. And then there was a couple of seasons where I got involved in fantasy football. And I thought, hey, I've been a fan of Florida State, but I've never really paid attention to anybody else or the sport as a whole. Like I watch the Florida State games. It's kind of a family thing. Me and my dad and my brother get together, watch the games, but that's about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to really go all in on fantasy football. And it consumed every minute of my day and life. And every Sunday I had to make sure that where we went to eat for lunch after church was where there was 15 to 20 TVs where I could see all the games. I could make the trades. I could do the stuff. I was like analyzing all the statistics on Monday and Tuesday after the game. I mean, it was just crazy. And my wife at the time was like, this is too much. Like she hates football, by the way. And so that was not a good thing. And there was I think the third season of doing fantasy football where even I got burnt out. I was like, this is silly. Like I've never really played the sport a day in my life. I've never been to a college that has a successful team or it has had a successful team. I can't go play professional sports. So I'm getting so wrapped up in this thing that doesn't actually impact my life, but I'm letting it impact my life and drive my energy. I get mad when something happened or when a player got injured, I was mad at them for getting injured. Like, what? You know what I mean?
That's when you're like, yeah, it's healthy to take a step back and say, well, you're taking, or you're taking it too seriously. And there's a way you can. So I probably have had moments like that, but now I'm in 3 leagues. I quasi care about them, but the real reason I care about them is because it gives me male community. Right. So we're able to get together and talk about things and joke. And so I'm I think 4th in my league right now out of 12 guys, but I don't have a quarterback because we're in this dynasty league. And I didn't realize that. Looks like everybody drafted all the quarterbacks, even the people that might be quarterbacks one day. And I waited until the 8th round to take a quarterback or something. And then by that time it was Taysom Hill and that's it. Yeah. and so I've got Taysom Hill's 4 points a game, and it's wow, a younger version of me would have been really pissed off, but the older version of me thinks it's so hilarious that I'm in 4th without actually having a quarterback. Right. So, awesome. So I think you got to just maybe, if it's real extreme, and yours isn't, I don't think, but if it was real extreme, you do need counseling. There are people that
for sure
literally blow their paychecks and it's going to be worse. That's why I wanted to say the sports betting thing, because it's already people that were betting a lot, informally. Mm-hmm. And now what do you see on NFL games? Every single commercial break, there's a sports book ad, right? And eventually, I don't know, maybe I'll do a little bit just for fun, but it's but that's going to be a thing that's going to really damage working class guys that are making, $10, $20 an hour and they bet $100 on a game. That's a whole day's wages, and if they try to then go try to make it back, right? It's just something to be kind of aware of. You want sports and anything in your life that you're a fan of to be a positive thing and not a negative thing that hurts your family.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I walked away before I saw it getting too serious. And, at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, there's other things I can do. I don't know. It was very, not cleansing. I guess that's a good word, but it was very peaceful and cleansing when I just basically walked away from sports altogether. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't even know now. Like I used to know when it was football season, like I knew the date. Now, like I'll get halfway through the day of the first game day and see a bunch of posts on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, it's game day. Wow. Okay. And I have no idea until I see people talking about it. So,
yeah. Well, you don't want to cross the line, but it's also really fun to get mad about some guy that's making $5 million a year doing a bad job. And you're like, this guy needs to get fired. He needs to go.
Yeah.
But then, I like to put in a little disclaimer, still a great guy, good family, no problem with him. I just want us to talk to the rich guys that went to our school, and I'm assuming probably mostly men that would waste money on this, but and give them $10 million to go away. We'll hire a new person and they can be happy with all their millions. So it's just fun. Like as, somebody who doesn't make football coach, like kind of that, you feel like, oh yeah, that rich guy is doing a bad job and, it doesn't deserve all that money. Let's get rid of him and get somebody else. And that guy's equally as bad or even worse. Right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
No, I have to be very careful about it. Talking about sports betting, like it's going to only become more normalized here in the near future. And I do like DraftKings on Sunday morning, and I was just quick story. I told my wife this week I was really excited. This sounds terrible. This is evidence that I need to stop. I was really excited because in one of the pick'ems I played, there was like 2 million people, right? And I was in the top 2,000, which I felt great about. And when I tell my wife, like, oh, there's only 1,800 people in front of me, she's like, that's a lot of people. 1,800 is a lot of people. And I was like, out of 2 million, though, like, I'm obviously great at this, hun. Like, I need to be doing this all the time. I have to delete the app off my phone because, like, it's not even that I waste money. It's just that I put emotional investment in it. And I already get extreme highs and lows based off sports. I mean, I will never, ever be angrier in my life than I was during the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 51. I won't be. That is the angriest I will ever be. My children could probably commit murder and go to jail, and I will not be as angry as I was as Devontae Freeman.
So I should never say. So I should never say 28-3 to you, like ever. It doesn't hurt me. One of my best friends is a Philly fan, and he says it to me daily, and I'm like, that doesn't hurt. What a jerk!
Well, he's from Philly, bro. That's who they are.
That's true. They threw beer bottles at Santa Claus. You know that one, right?
Yeah. Those words can't hurt me more than me actually living it. That is I'm dead inside now after that. I get it. You have to be careful about it.
I went to an Eagles game once up in the top bleachers where like the working class guys sat, and this person walked in with a Dallas Cowboys shirt for like a completely unrelated game. It was like Eagles versus Bengals. And this like 70-year-old guy that probably was an extra in The Godfather was there, wearing his jersey from like the 70s or something. And he's like, hey, you Cowboy fan, bleep you bleeping mother bleeper. This is my sanctuary. You walked into my sanctuary and you wear that piece of bleep you. And say all of that in like an extremely Italian-American accent too. And it was just like, wow, man, like I want devotion like that guy has to something. I don't care what it is, but
Yeah. I was just at a Eagles-Panthers game where I went with my friend of mine, and we were in Carolina. And at one point, Eagles fans start chanting "Cowboys suck." They weren't even playing that day.
Yeah. But that's one of those things where as long as you don't take it too seriously, right? That's the big caveat, right? Like the guy that poisoned Auburn's big trees, like the crazy Alabama. Again, like anything that's idolized is bad. That's why we're warned against it, right? In scripture, it's like very clear, right? So it's like, that's why you got to be careful. It's like, I think we're meant to enjoy these things. We're meant to have fun, but we're also human and addictive personalities, or something's going on in our marriage or something, and we're looking for a distraction, or, we're exhausted at work and we need a distraction. So it's like, just try to make sure you're not, you're dealing with root cause of the issues.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
we always end with the same two questions, and we've kind of already been talking about one of them, which is maybe some of the negatives that you have. I was wondering if maybe you could think of or list some more kind of dangers within maybe college football fandom, or, I don't know if there's anything specific to the Gators, but probably things that they have an issue with that the rest of college football fandom does.
Well, I think the concussion thing's a real deal. Are you watching people ruin the rest of their lives to watch an entertainment product? And I certainly felt guilty about that and thought about that quite a bit. But at the same time, I also think that there's no way to eliminate risk in life. And as long as you're trying to make sure that people are aware of what's going on, I think that's what's really matters. So for example, do we ban smoking? Well, no, we try to convince people not to do it, or we try to make it safer, or we try to raise taxes on it to make people do it less, or try to reduce the amount of advertising to people, right? So I think I'm very glad that players can now make money on their likenesses. Not to say that it makes me feel less guilty about the concussion thing, but at least I think it's more fair. Yeah. And I think, people that say, oh, we should end football because of the concussion thing. Well, I mean, and maybe somebody would say, well, if you provided adequate support for individuals from poor backgrounds, then you wouldn't need to have football. But that's also coming, I think, from a place of privilege where people are let's just end football because it's violent or it's bad for people's brains or something, where it's if you feel like you have no way out and this is your way out, we need to be encouraging people not to think that way. But if you do think that way, then canceling sports for a year during the pandemic would have been one of the worst things in the world to happen to these guys, right? If you think about the NCAA tournament getting canceled in 2020 in March, right? There are literally guys that would have blown up in that tournament and made the NBA and changed their lives that now will never get that opportunity and never get drafted and taken seriously by a team because that event didn't happen. Now, you could say, obviously, I don't think anybody would have disagreed that it wasn't the right call to cancel that tournament at the time. But I think that's kind of my thoughts, I guess. A little rambly, but, I think that there's always negatives you can find, always. And, people can have their opinions, but I think it's mostly fine to just try to, be responsible with it and just make sure people are treated fairly. So that's why I like the athletes finally getting to make money on their names.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%. If you're going to risk your life, you should at least be able to earn a buck while you're doing it.
Right. And know that you're doing it. Be honest about, hey, I'm choosing to do this and this could happen, but I'm still choosing to do it.
I mean, I like king crab, right? How many guys die from fishing for king crab, right? I literally contribute to people dying from that, but people still do it because they make that conscious decision. Right. Now, I don't think that we should allow people to do something extremely dangerous, but I mean, I think that that's another thing with the pandemic is I'll be honest, during this pandemic, I've had a really hard time because it sort of seems we're still talking about this almost 2 years later and it's still a thing. Right. And everybody's ready to be over with it, but people have different views about how that should go. So I don't know. I think try to extricate yourself to any extent possible you can from, there's all these culture wars tearing people apart and stuff. And that's why it's wow, I can just go back to my Gators and watch that with somebody that has a totally different religion from me, totally different background, maybe totally different views on, politics or international affairs or whatever. Right. Yeah. And we can be arm in arm singing the school song, chanting the same chant. And it's kind of like that 9/11 unity that we had after September 2001. That was the one good thing that came out of September 2001 was that national unity. That's just absolutely intoxicating to feel like you are arm in arm with your neighbors as Americans as one unit. Right. So I just want more of that, I guess, more unity, more togetherness, less divisiveness, less partisanship, less tribalism. And I think the healthy tribalism is when you put on your school colors, right, yell for several hours on a Saturday, and then go back and have a beer with your best friend who cheers the other team.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and along those same lines, I mean, what do you see in the future for the Florida Gators and for the maybe football as a whole? What are you excited about?
Wow. I mean, the new quarterback for the Gators, the freshman quarterback looks pretty good. Anthony Richardson. Kind of bizarre that his initials are AR and he goes by the number 15, like Tebow. So he's marketing his apparel as AR-15 apparel, which is kind of kind of interesting, kind of hilarious. Like, I don't know what exactly that's going to result in, but so that's kind of interesting. What do I see for the Gators? I don't know. I mean, I think that University of Florida is like really focused on trying to grow its reputation, its prestige. I mean, we'll see what happens with the school as a whole. I hope that's always a part of my life. I hope that I go back and relive those good memories from college, at least once every year or two, go to a game for the rest of my life, just because of all that togetherness and unification of like different periods of your life that fandom creates. Like, that's the healthiest version of it, is that you can literally string together who I was as an 18-year-old, who I was as a 25-year-old, as a 30-year-old, and onwards by one constant that doesn't change. And that's a wonderful thing that I hope more people will have.
That's awesome. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but let's kind of give us a commercial, give us a highlight, a promo of Student Loan Planner, what it is for those that need it, how they can get those services, and where they can access it.
Yeah. So like, if you're listening to a podcast, obviously, because you're hearing this, go to the Student Loan Planner podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen, and follow that. So that's our free source of information. StudentLoanPlanner.com is another big free source of information. If you have more than $20,000 of student loan debt, you need our tools, if not our help too. So what I mean by that is the tools are free. The site is free, right? You can go engage with those tools whenever. And when I say 20,000, if you have less than 20,000, we're probably not going to save you a ton of money to justify your attention, because the attention isn't free for you. You have to spend time like reading something, right? So if you have more than 20,000, the reason I say that is because, I'll give you an example. President Biden just authorized forgiveness credit for people that are in public service for any payments, any loans for the past ever. And this is a thing that exists for 1 year only for people who have loans before 2010 that are public servants. You have to consolidate them, which is a process. And you do that, you apply for this benefit. We just had a teacher that had 15 years of payments that had the wrong kind of loans. They're called FFEL loans. One of our team members told him, you can consolidate those into direct loans and the whole thing is forgiven tax-free. So this teacher had 30 grand of loans, modest income, thought he had the wrong kind of loans, and he did, until this executive order came out. And our team like explained what he needed to do to get all of that wiped away tax-free with zero negative implications.
Wow.
So that's a really good example of what we do. Like, we help people find the cheapest repayment program. If you're on an income-based plan, we can help you find the lowest interest rate. If you're trying to pay it back and debt snowball or debt avalanche and pay your debt off a lot faster, we can get cash bonuses for you for that. So StudentLoanPlanner.com has all of that. I would say the people that would hire us for a plan probably owe more than $100,000, and that's a few $100s. And then the people that know they want to pay it off just go and click on lenders from our site and get bonuses. So that's a little bit about our company, but we save tens of thousands of dollars for the average person that works with us, just because it's awesome. A very complicated system and it's really messed up.
Can you tell us the amount of the largest saving that you accomplished in one loan?
I mean, probably like $600,000.
Wow.
Well, because they didn't know that they were eligible for public service loan forgiveness, help them consolidate it, get it on the right plan. They were very unaware of how it worked. So that was just somebody that was quite ignorant of the loan rules, but they could literally get the whole thing forgiven. They just weren't aware of that.
Wow.
So that was one extreme case. There's probably a lot others. The other big savings is life savings, time savings. Like that's the thing I'm probably most proud of, is when somebody thinks they have to work full time because of their loans, but then they realize that they can work less and change their jobs because they have a loan forgiveness program that they didn't know about. So those are also really fun. Where like a mom of 3 kids is working full time as an orthodontist, and she's able to cut back to 3 days a week because she didn't know about a loan forgiveness program she could get.
Wow.
So I like getting people lower interest rates too by refinancing, but that's maybe not quite as big savings. Like you can save people thousands, but just not like hundreds of thousands.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Well, Travis, first of all, thank you for what you do. You offer, the service you offer. I've never had the need for it, but I know that it changes people's lives, and knowing you and your heart and who you are, absolutely amazing work that you and your team do. So thank you for doing that. And hopefully those that are listening here, some can go take advantage of that and have their life changed. But we appreciate you coming on, chatting Florida Gators, even though I used to be a Florida State fan. That's a wonder we even let that happen. But thanks so much for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
See you, man. Hey there. If you're still listening, that means you really enjoyed this podcast and don't like missing even a second of it. For that reason, I'm going to tell you how to hear even more. By that, I mean the raw, fully unedited, behind the scenes kind of stuff. Go to fantasticpeoplepod.supercast.tech and become a premium member of Fantastic People. The link will be in the show notes. Like I said, by doing that, you'll get the raw, completely unedited cut of every episode, including much of our backlog. In addition, you'll get access to our Discord server where we will host Ask Me Anythings and random fandom chats. But wait, there's more! You'll also get access to our upcoming recording schedule and the ability to submit questions for upcoming guests. Again, that's fantasticpeoplepod.supercast.tech.